The first update to Warframe in 2023 comes in the middle of February and it's called Citrine's Last Wish. And in this update, you got a Warframe, you got a kind of a new game mode, and 2 signature weapons. One of which a very interesting shotgun in the form of the Steflos, bearing a lot of resemblance to the legendary Arca Plasmor, a fan favorite. So the question obviously becomes, is it better than the Plasmor? Is it worse? Is it different? Well, let's find out together. As always, my name is Leyzar, and I got a couple of builds lined up. Something cheap, affordable, something that a new player can get into. But fear not, my veteran friends. We also got the Endgame setup. We got Prime mods, Galvanized mods. We're going to be taking this one to Steel Path, put it through its paces, see what it's capable of. That said though, please bear in mind that my builds and guides usually take a more new player friendly tone. Simply because I want anybody watching to understand how the weapon functions and how it should be built. So in case you're a vet and you already know most of this stuff, you can either skip ahead or have a bit of patience. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Steflos. Let's begin by checking out how the weapon handles without any mods equipped. And for that, just a couple of our regular free shots. The Steflos is a primary shotgun with a projectile-based attack that is very similar to another fabled weapon of Warframe. And we're going to be drawing some comparisons to the Arca Plasmor for obvious reasons. Now this projectile has infinite body punch through. That means no matter how many enemies you want to hit, it's gonna go through them rather easily. By default the range on this puppy is 12 meters, but if you hit something, it's gonna be traveling longer and it's gonna be getting bigger as well. Longer and bigger, Leyzar? I'm sorry, it's just simply how the projectile functions. There is an issue with it, however. If it meets a surface, for example a wall or the floor, the projectile simply stops without any animation. At the end of the travel path there is an explosion animation, but sadly nothing if you're gonna be hitting something. And it looks like the projectile is going through the ground or anything of the sort, but no, unless you build punch through on the weapon, you're not gonna be able to shoot through walls, sadly. The next problem is the fact that the projectile gets progressively bigger the more targets you hit, and you're gonna say, oh my god, that means it's gonna hit the walls and I'm done with it, right? Not exactly, because you see, only the center of the projectile is susceptible to walls and the floor, so you can... see this? The sides can hit walls, floor, whatever, it doesn't really matter. As long as the center is not affected, you don't really have that issue, which is why you can do things like this, even though the projectile is semi-going through the floor there. And I do believe, my friends, that that's pretty much it for the actual projectile. The fire rate, well, by default is actually pretty good on this weapon, opposed to another weapon. As you can see, this is the default maximum fire rate. The reload is a bit on the lengthy side, especially considering that you only got a 12 magazine capacity. One last thing, this weapon also had its headshot multiplier removed, sadly, much like the Arca Plasmor. And that's pretty much it for functionality. Next up, we're going to be jumping into stats to see exactly what we're dealing with. Mod capacity 60 out of 60, and if yours comes with a measly 30 out of 30, you jump into actions, you plug in the Auto King Catalyst, doubling that mod capacity. Is it worth? 100% if you don't have the Tenet Arca Plasmor. So, there you go. When it comes to Forma count, not exactly a Forma light weapon. If you want to max this puppy out, you're looking at 5, 6, even 7 Forma if you have a Riven. But if you're looking at a standard build, you can go to free, something of the sort. Don't let the Forma count intimidate you. At the end of the day, what else are you gonna do in Warframe? In the Arcane slot, yes, I took into account the brand new Arcanes, including primary plated round. Already got a max one of this one, but it's still the same old story. You want to go for a raw strength approach, you go with Deadhead, but considering this one had its headshot multiplier removed, I wouldn't do it. So primary Merciless 9 times out of 10 is still gonna be best in slot. What about the one time? Well, dexterity, when you're gonna be using melee or melee. In the excellent slot, best in slot, fatal acceleration if you don't have ammo issues, and by all intents and purposes I ran Steel Path, plenty since release, and I didn't have any ammo issues. But if you do, you can simply go with Vigilante Supplies. The rest of them don't really matter all that much. And if the ammo issues get too bad, you can go with Prime Shotgun Ammo Mutation. Where is it? I don't have it because I never really felt the need for it, which is why I don't recommend you pick it up from battle. Now, accuracy doesn't matter. Ammo maximum 36, ammo pickup is gonna be 12, fall off between 8 and 16 meters. That is fine, especially considering that when you put on projectile flight speed like fatal acceleration, this will be increased to 11.2 to 22.4. It drops to 20% damage or 50% damage. It's not important because with acceleration on, you're gonna be getting yourself plenty of range. Just make sure you don't try to hit enemies from across the room, because it's not exactly fantastic. fantastic. So again, 11 meters maximum would be ideal. Fire rate of 3, which is actually pretty good for a semi-automatic weapon. A magazine of 12, noise alarming, reload on 2.4 seconds. A bit lengthy and it's entirely unjustified. Riven disposition of nada because this is a brand new weapon. Are Rivens worth it on this one? Well, you can get something like this. You can. Thank you so much for loaning me this one. Critical chance damage multi-shot. It is worth using on the weapon, kinda, but it makes such a small difference. You know what? I wouldn't bother unless the Riven disposition will be going a bit higher, if it'll go higher. Now, for the actual important bits, 14% critical chance. This is what you call on the edge of worth it. It's not worth to build critical chance, so you're going to be building critical chance and you're going to be getting a low crit weapon, yay, thanks DE. But 2.2x critical multiplier, which is not bad. Status chance again on the weak side at 22%, considering how many projectiles or how many damage instances you're going to be putting into your target. 22% is not fantastic. Now let's have a look at a standard build, shall we? Damage with point blank, multi-shot health chamber, critical chance, critical damage through the use of critical deceleration, ravage, and laser sight. For 1 second, let's talk about multi-shot. Best thing on everything still, even in 2023, Vigilante Armament is your option slot. You can plug it in instead of laser sights if you so desire. I went for more crit because Moo, therefore more slash. When it comes to Ravage, hey boy, this one really sucks as a mod. Honestly, Prime Ravage gives you a lot more, 110%. If you want a bit more critical damage and you're not turned off by the fact that you're gonna have to get a kill, and it's only one aiming, and you gotta get a kill every 9 seconds, you can go with this one instead. It's gonna be getting you a lot more critical damage, but for the sake of ease of use, you can go with Ravage. The 260-60 mod, Toxic Barrage, and Frigid Blast. These are very easy to obtain. Toxic Barrage, Corrupted Void in the Void, and Frigid Blast from spy missions, if I remember correctly. The Steflos is Citrine's signature weapon. What is the bonus when using with Citrine? A bit more projectile flight speed, but you will see that the actual difference is pretty small. I think they only gave like 10, maybe 20% projectile flight speed. This is how it looks with Citrine. Let me show you quick with something like Ember. You see that? There's hardly any difference if you put on Fatal Acceleration. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out, and I forgot, I love the way this weapon sounds. So hats off to the sound team, it sounds like bloody thunder. Listen. Nothing up my sleeve, no corrosive projection or arcanes or a void school, nothing of the sort that would skew the test results and make the weapon seem more powerful than it actually is. This is gonna be a clean test. Just a weapon, its own capabilities versus level 120, corrupted heavy goons, and Exogog stat officer by popular demand. Now don't go straight for body shots because you still have laser sight on the weapon, okay? So make sure that laser sight is up at all times. You don't have to go for headshots after that. I simply go out of reflex. Now that's gonna be an entire magazine. What do we got? Not a whole lot, my friends. Not a whole lot. You got a couple of vitals, you got some slashes and all whatnot, but it's definitely not fantastic. There is no consistency with this weapon because of the low status chance and the low critical chance. If we don't got good status chance, if we don't got good critical chance, and we can't consistently get the procs we need on targets, then why don't we build raw damage, something like corrosive and heat, for example? And unfortunately, that build is not fantastic either, underperforming as well. Now for the Exogog stat, these are actually a lot more tougher. These have a bit more EHP, and that's gonna be a full magazine. What do we got? Not a single fatality, but hey, almost close to a fatality for a full magazine out of the weapon, which again is definitely not fantastic. Thankfully though, we can make a more powerful build. Then you're looking at something of the sort. We're going to be using Galvanized Savvy, Prime Point Blank, or in case you're going to be fighting the Corrupted and you don't mind faction mods, you can replace this one with Prime Cleanse something. As for Rivens, again, they will make a difference, but it's gonna be a tiny difference. I, for one, wouldn't go out of my way to spend thousands or something like this. And I know that a lot of you, or most of you, don't have a Riven, so I'm gonna be showcasing it without the Riven, because again, it doesn't make a huge difference. Prime Ravage, Galvanized Hell, Primary, Merciless, and Galvanized Acceleration in the Excellent slot. Let's see if we can get a decent difference this time. Keep in mind that this is a Galvanized setup, and having a Galvanized setup, I'm gonna have to get a few kills until the weapon actually does some good amounts of flat damage. Procs on the target already performing better. Got a couple of stacks, and now the weapon is legitimately able to kill. Have a looks. A lot better than before, but to be frank, it Wouldn't have been very hard to do better than before. The weapon is usable and you can use it in Steel Path as well. What? This will work in Steel Path? Of course it'll work in Steel Path. Have a look. Welcome to the Void, my friends. Now I'm gonna be using it with Citrine, but I'm not gonna be using the Warframe's crowd controlling abilities, because if I use her 4, that means extra crit from the projectiles, so it wouldn't really be a very fair showcase now with it for the weapon. Instead, I'm just gonna use the weapon's capabilities and use Citrine's 2 to survive. As you can see, it deals plenty of damage, and it's fully capable of clearing a corridor of level 100 and what is that? 30 corrupted. This is a capture Steel Path mission against the corrupted. When it comes to butchers, you can one-shot butchers, but you know, butchers get one-shot by essentially everything, so bear that one in mind. Ammo is not usually a concern unless you need to spam. When do you need to spam too much? Well, when you get higher level targets or more beefier targets like that corrupted heavy goon level 130. But normally it's not really much of an issue. Keep in mind the XL slot, you do have the option to use shotgun ammo mutation if you see you're having constant issues with that one. Vulpaphyla helping out with the proc consistency, and as you saw there, that was beautiful. That was a beautiful shot, right? A single projectile taking out 2 targets like that, absolutely freaking fantastic. You got plenty of range with the projectile flight speed, especially now since we're using the galvanized one. Fully stacked out, I believe. I think it's fully stacked out at this point. A single shot, destroying the butcher there. And that's the kind of performance you can expect out of Steel Path. But let me make one thing very clear. This is not a weapon I would take into Endurance. You guys want to fight levels in the thousands? This is not the weapon to do that. Definitely not. You want a weapon that is the best, or one of the best at doing that? Look at the cards right now for a full and detailed guide. Not gonna tell you the weapon though, until you look at it, click it. What else is there to say? Well, I don't think there's a whole lot left to say. This is in gameplay similar to the Arca Plasmor. Now, of course, we can draw a lot of comparisons to that weapon, but for that, let's hop on over back to the Simulacrum so we can add a bit more stronger Warframe buffs after I kill this goon. And when it comes to the strongest weapon buffs there are, nobody is better than Lady Mirage Prime and her outstanding assets. Corrosive projection against heavily armored targets, that's a no-brainer, but please don't feel forced into this one. If your build calls for whatever aura, simply use whatever aura. Arcanes, now these are a lot more impactful. We're going to be going with Avenger because this weapon sorely needs that 45% bonus critical chance, additive after simply stacking on top of what you already have. As for your primary arcane, honestly, this should be your Energize or your extra power strength or whatever else you desire. But if you prefer more flat damage and if you're not hitting targets over level 400, 500, I would still go with flat damage because it's gonna get you better clear time. You can go with something like Arcane Rage. You prefer fire rate on a semi-automatic weapon? Well, it's your funeral, but Arcane Tempo is the way to go when it comes to shotguns. It's a shotgun only arcane. It's a cheap arcane, 90% fire rate. It's on critical hit, 15% chance to active Vashu. Now, if you want to fix the reload, if the reload really bothers you, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, I might have already, but go with Chilling Reload instead of the 60/60 cold mod Frigid Blast. Now, when it comes to companions, you can simply go for the Panzer Vulpaphyla. The Panzer Vulpaphyla will help you out with the vital procs, and the consistency again on the weapon is not that fantastic, so it is a smart idea. A less smart idea, but a more fun idea, is to go with something like Carrier or any Sentinel you want. Just make sure that on that Sentinel's weapon you have the 4 Vigilante mods to get extra chance to crit. Basically, that's how it goes. Even if the little Sentinel dies and never comes back to life, you will still retain said buff. Max out the targets, 165, because that's what DE allows me in the Simulacrum. Now, before we get to Carnage, did you guys see something with this patch? You can no longer glide and cast abilities while continuing the glide. Does that make any sense? Have a look. So anytime you cast an ability, you fall to the floor like a stone, and that did not happen before. You were able to continue the glide while the animations kept going. Now, of course, I may have missed something in the patch notes, and if I did, please let me know in the comment section down below. It's bothering because before you could make these really cool gameplay moves, mid-air animations and all whatnot. Sadly, not anymore. Now, back to our kettle of fish. We're gonna be spawning in the Corrupted Heavy Goons and the Exogogs at 165 and power, and her ever so lovely clones. Now let's see what the Steflos can do with Mirage's outstanding buffs. As you can see, the projectile is fully capable of traveling the length of the Simulacrum, absolutely annihilating whatever it comes across. So it's time to draw some very sensitive conclusions, I want to say. Now, I already seen a couple of comments going like, oh, the Steflos is such a bad weapon. My friends, let's get one thing very, very clear. This is far from being a bad weapon. This is a great weapon. But is this a Felarx? No. Is this a Seto? God, no. Is this an Arca Plasmor? Well, kinda. But in all actuality, this is just a weaker Arca Plasmor. If you have the Tenet version of the Arca Plasmor, you have this weapon, but better. And it's as simple as that. The Arca Plasmor has better critical chance, a lot more damage. The Steflos is not even in the same ballpark in terms of damage with the Tenet version of the Plasmor. And also the projectile on the Plasmor is superior. It bounces around, it doesn't stop when it hits a wall, and it's faster as well. So I'm honestly sad to say this is just a weaker Plasmor. I would like to say it has more personality and all whatnot, and I love the way it sounds, and the projectile is cool, but it's just a weaker Plasmor, sadly. And I do believe, my friends, that is pretty much it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't farm the weapon. I mean, mastery points are worth it, 100%. And at the end of the day, again, this is not a bad weapon. It can clear house. You can go the steel path with it. It's just that it's not fantastic. And that's kind of it. As always, my name has been Leyzar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe only if you enjoy the content. If you got any feedback for me, I would love to read it in the comment section down below. Now, here's my feedback, dear developer. Why? Why would you bother making such a cool looking and sounding and feeling weapon and then just gimp the damage? Why would you do that? Why would you remove the headshot multiplier from this weapon? Even with it, it wouldn't be a threat, it wouldn't be a overpowered weapon by any stretch of the imagination. At least it would be different than the Arca. Once again, just like Gyre's signature weapon, a beautiful weapon, a fantastic feeling weapon, looking weapon, sounding weapon, with terrible damage stats. On the plus side, however, this patch came with an amazing Warframe. I'm talking about Citrine, and if you want to know everything you need to about her, link in the cards right now for a full and detailed guide on it. You can also catch me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. Come by, see the live streams, and if you love the content and you want to help me keep making it, consider supporting us via Patreon. There will be a link in the upper portion of the screen right about now, or in the description down below. But until next time, my friends, bye-bye.